The grand halls of the palace were silent, yet the weight of unspoken sorrow seemed to echo through every marble corridor. Behind the glittering chandeliers and golden tapestries, a queen sat alone, her gaze fixed on a world that could never offer her the one thing she longed for most: love. History remembers her for her crown, her poise, and the decisions that shaped a kingdom, but few know the heart that beat with quiet desperation beneath the royal regalia. She was a queen in power, yet a prisoner of longing, trapped by duty, expectation, and the relentless scrutiny of court life. From the moment she ascended to the throne, her life was a delicate balance of authority and isolation. Advisors whispered, nobles schemed, and every public smile concealed private tears. Political alliances demanded sacrifice, marriages arranged for strategy rather than affection, and her heart, tender and yearning, was never considered. It was this contrast, regal influence paired with intimate vulnerability, that defined her story. Yet, despite the weight of the crown, she dared to hope. Secret glances, forbidden conversations, fleeting moments of connection. These small sparks of potential happiness became the lifeline she clung to amid the rigid demands of power. Each day was a test. To maintain composure while the ache of unmet desire gnawed at her, to present strength while feeling the fragility of her own emotions. And so her life unfolded like a delicate, tragic tapestry, magnificent in appearance but fraying at the edges with quiet sorrow. This is the story of a queen who died waiting for love, a tale of longing entangled with duty, of passion thwarted by circumstance, and of a heart that, though hidden beneath layers of royal expectation, remained achingly human. Long before the crown weighed upon her brow, the girl who would become queen lived a life shaped by both privilege and constraint. Born into a noble family, she was surrounded by opulence, silk curtains that fluttered like whispers of grandeur, gardens where the scent of roses mingled with the laughter of childhood, and tutors who taught her languages, literature, and the art of diplomacy. Yet, even amidst the beauty and refinement, her early years were marked by an acute awareness of the world's harsh realities. Her family, though loving, was deeply enmeshed in the politics of the realm. Every smile, every compliment, every choice carried consequences far beyond what a child could understand. From the beginning, she possessed a sensitivity that set her apart. While her peers competed for titles, favors, and attention, she found solace in quiet observation, in the small, unnoticed moments that revealed the truths of human nature. She noticed the fleeting glances exchanged between servants, the subtle gestures of her parents during council meetings, the sadness behind the tutors' forced smiles. Even at a young age, she understood that power and affection were rarely aligned, and that the heart often paid a hidden price for the ambitions of others. Her experiences with love and loss began early. Childhood friendships were fleeting, disrupted by relocations and arranged introductions to distant relatives meant to strengthen alliances. The first brush of romantic curiosity arrived in stolen glances and whispered letters, innocent yet charged with the electricity of discovery. Each fleeting connection, however, was tempered by the looming presence of duty. Her path had been set long before she fully understood it. These early encounters left her with a profound longing, a desire for genuine affection that would persist even as her world became dominated by politics and power. The contrast between her innocence and the calculated complexity of her environment shaped her character. She learned to navigate courtly expectations while nurturing a private, tender interior life. She observed how adults wielded influence, how alliances shifted like sand beneath one's feet, and how love could be manipulated, postponed, or denied entirely. These lessons, though painful, refined her sensitivity and forged a quiet strength, the ability to see beyond appearances, to recognize the difference between genuine connection and strategic alliance. By the time she reached adolescence, the seeds of her later struggles were already sown. She carried within her both the dreams of the heart and the burdens of a realm that demanded sacrifice above all else. Her youthful curiosity and yearning for closeness were tempered by early encounters with betrayal and disappointment. The girl who laughed under sunlit trees would one day walk the corridors of a palace with heavy steps. A queen whose every move was scrutinized, yet whose heart remained imprisoned by the same longing that had defined her earliest days. The day she first met her husband, the queen felt a strange mixture of curiosity and dread. Though adorned in royal splendor, surrounded by the pomp of courtly ceremony, the event was not a celebration of love. It was a calculated political maneuver. Every gesture, every word exchanged, was choreographed to serve alliances, secure loyalties, and uphold the fragile balance of power. Her heart, still tender from early experiences of fleeting affection, recognized immediately the chasm between duty and desire. She was no longer the girl wandering sunlit gardens, but a pawn in a game much larger than herself. Her husband, a man of impressive stature and commanding presence, embodied the ideal of royal masculinity. Yet behind the polished veneer, he was distant, preoccupied with the demands of statecraft and the expectations of the court. Their union, though celebrated by ministers and nobles, offered no intimacy, no shared dreams. In private, the queen discovered that marriage in her world was a landscape of cold formality. Candles flickered in grand chambers, yet the warmth they brought could not fill the void left by the absence of mutual affection. Nights spent side by side revealed a stark truth. Proximity did not equate to connection. Conversations were measured, carefully guarded, and devoid of the spontaneity and vulnerability that love requires. The contrast between her public and private life was stark and relentless. In the palace, she was surrounded by grandeur, gold-accented walls, lavish tapestries, and endless processions of servants attending her every need. She moved through halls designed to impress and intimidate, her every step observed by courtiers trained to note even the slightest expression. Yet beyond the veneer of luxury lay a profound loneliness. Surrounded by advisors and attendants, she was never truly seen for who she was, only as a symbol, a fixture in the political theater of the realm. Her heart, still longing for genuine connection, felt increasingly confined. Even in moments of fleeting hope, the boundaries of duty pressed upon her relentlessly. She attempted to reach for understanding in her husband's eyes, to find camaraderie or warmth, only to be met with polite detachment or calculated indifference. The very institutions that celebrated her union, the palace, the court, the pomp of ceremonies, also reinforced her isolation. She was a queen in title and privilege, yet a prisoner of circumstance, her dreams subordinated to the demands of power. Despite the emotional barrenness of her marriage, she did not surrender entirely to despair. Private moments, stolen behind the heavy curtains of her chambers, revealed her quiet resilience. She wrote letters she could never send, expressed thoughts she could never voice aloud, and clung to the memory of the innocence and tenderness of her early life. These secret acts of self-preservation allowed her to navigate the palace's treacherous currents, giving her a fragile but necessary sense of identity. Her struggles were further compounded by the expectations of heirs and alliances. Every conversation about children, succession, or diplomatic relations reminded her of the narrowness of her freedom. Duty demanded sacrifices that love could never justify. Her inner life became a delicate balance between obedience and quiet resistance, between performing the role of the dutiful queen and protecting the essence of her true self. Each day reinforced the painful contrast between the glittering exterior of her life and the emptiness of the emotional reality she endured. In the end, her marriage became a profound lesson in the cost of royal duty. It taught her the cruel truth that even amidst the finest silks and grandest halls, a heart can remain desperately alone. Her longing for love, for connection, and for understanding did not diminish. It only became more acute, framed by the opulence and isolation that surrounded her. The queen learned that in the world she inhabited, personal happiness was a luxury the throne could rarely afford, and that the human heart, no matter how resilient, often suffers most in silence behind the walls of power. Even within the gilded cages of her palace, the queen's heart refused to remain entirely imprisoned. Beneath layers of silk gowns and ceremonial etiquette, she nurtured secret affections, relationships that dared to exist only in stolen glances and whispered conversations. In the halls where courtiers whispered of alliances and succession, she quietly explored the possibilities of emotional connection that the world of duty denied her. These forbidden bonds, though fraught with peril, offered fleeting warmth against the persistent chill of loneliness. Her first and most poignant attachment was not to a courtier of rank or a foreign dignitary, but to someone she could trust, someone who listened without judgment and understood the subtle language of her unspoken sorrow. Their encounters were carefully measured, brief moments of tenderness that risked scandal, yet brought her the comfort of being seen as a person rather than a symbol. Each meeting, each conversation, was a delicate dance, the joy of connection tempered by the shadow of potential ruin. In a society where every expression could be recorded and misinterpreted, the stakes were impossibly high. The Queen's emotions were not merely fleeting desires. They were acts of defiance against the rigid structures of royal life. She longed to love openly, to experience the simple gestures of companionship, a touch, a shared laugh, a conversation held late into the night. Instead, she had to conceal these desires beneath the mask of propriety, every smile carefully choreographed, every word weighed for its public safety. The contrast between her inner yearnings and her outward conduct created a tension that gnawed at her soul, a constant reminder that in the pursuit of power and duty, love was considered a dangerous indulgence. There were also moments when she allowed herself to imagine a life beyond courtly constraints, a life where choices were dictated by passion rather than protocol. In her private chambers, she penned letters to confidants she would never send, wrote reflections in secret diaries, and lingered over memories of fleeting joys that hinted at what might have been. These acts were small rebellions, private affirmations of her humanity. They reinforced her resilience even as they underscored the impossibility of fulfillment within her official role. Societal expectations weighed heavily upon her. Any public acknowledgement of these affections could have destroyed her reputation, compromised alliances, and endangered lives. The palace, with its ornate ceilings and golden fixtures, was a stage upon which she performed the role of the dutiful wife, the unflappable sovereign, while her heart quietly rebelled. The thrill of hidden love existed alongside the constant fear of discovery, creating a tension that sharpened every emotion, made every clandestine moment feel vivid, dangerous, and unforgettable. Ultimately, these secret affections illuminated both her strength and her vulnerability. They revealed a woman who, despite immense privilege and power, faced the same human longing for connection as any ordinary person. Yet, the very societal and political structures that elevated her also confined her, forcing her to navigate a world in which desire was perilous and love could never be fully embraced. In these hidden relationships, the Queen's heart found brief sanctuary, a fragile respite from the relentless demands of duty, a testament to the enduring, unquenchable human need for intimacy. Even in the most constrained of lives, the glittering corridors of the palace were not merely passages of grandeur. They were arenas of constant observation, suspicion, and calculation. Within this gilded labyrinth, every smile, every gesture, every whispered word could be weaponized. The Queen, despite her elevated status, found herself caught in the relentless games of ambition and envy that defined court life. Publicly admired and ceremonially adored, she privately endured a landscape of subtle cruelty that gnawed at her sense of security. Rival factions constantly vied for influence over the throne, and the Queen's position made her both a prize and a threat. Courtiers who publicly praised her beauty and poise often whispered accusations behind closed doors, speculating on her intentions, her loyalty, or her affections. Allies were scarce, and even those who seemed trustworthy could pivot without warning, swayed by ambition or fear. In this environment, appearances were everything, and the Queen's every move was scrutinized with a lens that distorted her humanity into political calculation. The contrast between public perception and private reality could not have been starker. To the outside world, she was the epitome of regal dignity, composed, gracious, untouchable. Yet behind closed doors, she navigated a maze of subtle threats and veiled insults. Invitations were extended or rescinded not on merit or friendship, but on strategic considerations. Compliments were double-edged, capable of both praise and manipulation. Every courtly smile carried the potential for betrayal, and every gesture of kindness might mask ulterior motives. The weight of constant vigilance was suffocating, amplifying her already profound loneliness. Jealousy among courtiers added a personal sting to the political intrigue. Those envious of her beauty, intellect, or perceived influence sought to undermine her at every opportunity. Rumors spread with the efficiency of wildfire, twisting innocent acts into scandalous insinuations. Even small mistakes, an awkward turn of phrase, a delayed response, a misread glance, were magnified into evidence of incompetence or moral failing. The queen had to navigate this treacherous landscape with precision, balancing diplomacy with authenticity while safeguarding her own emotional well-being. Manipulation was another constant threat. Advisors, diplomats, and even supposed friends played intricate games, often pitting one member of the court against another to further their own objectives. The queen quickly learned that trust was a luxury she could scarcely afford. Loyalty was conditional, always dependent on political advantage. Her private thoughts, her genuine desires, were treated as vulnerabilities to exploit rather than qualities to honor. This reality made the pursuit of love and emotional connection even more perilous, for nothing existed in isolation within the palace walls. Yet, it was within this environment of cruelty and cunning that the queen's resilience became apparent. She learned to read intentions behind words, to anticipate subtle shifts in alliances, and to protect her inner life with careful discretion. Even as the court sought to manipulate and isolate her, she maintained a sense of dignity, a fragile sovereignty over her own emotions. The tension between her public persona and private struggle highlighted the paradox of power, elevated above ordinary people, yet trapped within an invisible cage of constant scrutiny and psychological warfare. In the midst of these cruel games, the queen's humanity endured, quietly defying the pressures designed to erode it. Beneath the queen's composed exterior lay a world of quiet anguish, a private realm shielded from the eyes of courtiers and foreign dignitaries. While the palace halls echoed with music, ceremony, and laughter, she walked these same corridors burdened with a deep, unspoken sorrow. Publicly, she was the image of regal grace, smiling at banquets, attending diplomatic gatherings, and fulfilling every expectation of her elevated station. Privately, however, her heart carried the weight of unfulfilled longing, a slow-burning ache that no title, no wealth, and no public adoration could assuage. Her days were punctuated by moments of solitude, where the glittering facades of palace life fell away to reveal her true emotional state. She often retreated to her chambers, closing heavy doors behind her to shut out the world. In these quiet spaces, the queen's thoughts were free to wander, untethered from the performance demanded by court life. Letters became confidants, scraps of paper that absorbed her deepest reflections and yearnings. Each carefully penned line was an attempt to articulate the desires she could not express aloud, a fragile bridge between her inner world and the life she had been forced to inhabit. The contrast between her public poise and private sorrow was stark. In the throne room, she could project authority and serenity, maintaining the illusion of contentment expected of a monarch. A slight smile, a courteous nod, or a measured word masked the tumult beneath. Yet behind closed doors, the same queen wept over love that never arrived, over promises unfulfilled, and over the isolation that power had imposed upon her. The sensory details of her private suffering were vivid. The quiet rustle of silk against cold marble floors, the faint scent of candle wax and perfume mingling with the scent of her tears, the weight of jewelry that felt more like chains than adornments. Every element of her environment reminded her of the world she could not fully inhabit emotionally. Her longing for love was intensified by the awareness of its impossibility. The political realities of her position left little room for personal desire, and yet her heart rebelled against these constraints. Every glance from a suitor or whispered conversation between allies became a source of hope, quickly extinguished by the reality of duty and circumstance. The emotional tension she endured was compounded by the knowledge that her silence was expected and required. Expression of genuine feeling would be deemed weakness, a breach of decorum, or even a threat to her authority. Letters and personal reflections reveal the depth of her silent suffering. In these private writings, she documented moments of fleeting joy and enduring despair, capturing the nuances of a life lived in waiting. She reflected on missed opportunities, fleeting encounters, and the stark divide between the love she imagined and the life she was forced to lead. These writings were both an outlet and a trap, providing temporary relief while continually reminding her of the love that remained unattainable. Even as the queen endured this inner torment, she displayed remarkable resilience. Her silent suffering did not break her outward composure. It honed her capacity for empathy, introspection, and emotional endurance. The private sorrows she bore became a crucible in which her character was forged, a testament to the quiet strength required to survive a life dictated by power, duty, and expectation. Her story reminds us that true suffering is often invisible, residing in the spaces between public spectacle and private reality. The queen's silent sorrow, profound and unrelenting, shaped her existence and left an indelible mark on history, a portrait of longing and resilience that transcended the gilded cage of royal life. Throughout her reign, the queen's heart remained restless, seeking fleeting moments of connection that life and duty so often denied her. In the midst of political obligations, she found small windows where affection could blossom, brief interludes where her humanity could emerge beyond the gilded cage of royalty. These attempts at love were rarely grand or public. They were whispered conversations in dimly lit gardens, stolen glances across crowded halls, and subtle gestures exchanged under the watchful eyes of the court. Each fleeting encounter carried the intensity of longing, magnified by the knowledge that it could never fully flourish. Despite her careful discretion, the queen's desires were never entirely hidden. Servants, courtiers, and confidants observed subtle shifts in her demeanor, a sudden blush, a lingering smile, or an uncharacteristic sparkle in her eyes. Yet these small sparks of connection were always curtailed by circumstance. Political alliances, social expectations, and the ever-present scrutiny of the court imposed rigid boundaries. A tender note left on a desk might be intercepted, a private meeting curtailed by an unexpected visitor, or a gentle gesture misinterpreted and suppressed. Each thwarted attempt reinforced the tragic reality that her heart, though willing, was continually restrained by her station. The queen's brief romantic experiences carried enormous emotional stakes. Every interaction held the weight of potential scandal, betrayal, or heartbreak. She understood that even a single misstep could jeopardize her reputation, her authority, or the delicate balance of alliances that sustained her kingdom. Yet she could not suppress her longing, nor extinguish the hope that somewhere, even within these constraints, love might bloom. This tension, between desire and duty, between heart and crown, was a constant companion, shaping her actions and influencing every decision she made in both private and public spheres. These attempts at connection reveal not only her vulnerability, but also her courage. To risk even a fleeting moment of intimacy required defiance of the invisible chains imposed by her royal position. She navigated a labyrinth of protocol, expectations, and surveillance, seeking moments of authenticity without compromising her role. In doing so, she demonstrated a profound understanding of human emotion, balancing hope with restraint and desire with responsibility. Tragically, the queen's search for love was almost always met with disappointment. Each thwarted encounter, each interrupted gesture, and each denied opportunity deepened her awareness of the isolation inherent in her life. Yet these experiences also underscore her resilience. She continued to reach for connection, however briefly, refusing to allow her heart to harden completely under the weight of duty. The courage to pursue love, even when it was fleeting and fraught with risk, highlights the depth of her humanity and the poignancy of her story. Ultimately, These attempts to find love emphasize the central tragedy of her life, a constant yearning for emotional fulfillment that was repeatedly obstructed by circumstance and expectation. The Queen's pursuit of connection, though largely unsuccessful, paints a vivid portrait of longing, vulnerability, and quiet bravery. It reminds us that even in the most restrictive conditions, the heart seeks its own freedom, and the human desire for love cannot be entirely subdued, no matter the cost. As the years passed, the weight of unfulfilled love and relentless duty began to exact an unmistakable toll on the Queen. To the world, she remained a figure of grace and authority, her regal composure seemingly untouched by the personal storms brewing beneath the surface. Courtiers and ambassadors marveled at her poise, the way she navigated state affairs with intelligence and dignity, yet few glimpsed the private agony that increasingly defined her life. Behind closed doors, the Queen wrestled with a profound sense of emptiness, her vibrant spirit gradually dimmed by the relentless constraints of her role and the absence of genuine affection. Physically, the stress of emotional deprivation manifested in subtle, yet insidious ways. Insomnia became a nightly companion, her eyes carrying the fatigue of countless restless nights. Appetite waned during periods of heartache, leaving her body frail and vulnerable to illnesses that, though treatable, were amplified by her weakened state. Each ailment, minor or severe, was a stark reminder of her body's fragility in contrast to the seemingly unshakable image she projected. Public appearances required a mask of vitality, yet each smile was tempered by the hidden shadow of pain, a duality that became increasingly difficult to maintain. Mentally, the Queen faced the relentless pressure of expectation. Every interaction, every conversation, was framed by the court's unforgiving standards. Her decisions were scrutinized not only for political wisdom but for hints of emotional instability, a double-edged sword that compounded her inner turmoil. Letters and personal diaries, glimpses into her private reflections, reveal a mind caught between duty and desire. Her thoughts often drifted to what might have been, to moments of tenderness that were denied, and to dreams of companionship that remained painfully out of reach. The contrast between her public triumphs and private despair deepened with each passing year, underscoring the tragic dimensions of her existence. Emotionally, isolation became an almost tangible presence. Friends and confidants came and went, wary of the court's gossip or cautious of overstepping invisible boundaries. Even those closest to her struggled to penetrate the walls she erected around her heart, leaving her to navigate her suffering largely alone. Small joys, brief letters, moments of quiet reflection, the comfort of familiar surroundings, were fleeting reprieves rather than lasting solace. Each disappointment compounded, leaving emotional scars that never fully healed. The Queen's longing for love remained a constant undercurrent, a quiet ache that contrasted sharply with her outwardly commanding presence. The decline was not purely gradual. Moments of acute heartbreak punctuated her later years. Failed attempts at romantic connection, betrayals by trusted allies, and the constant reminder of opportunities lost intensified her sense of despair. Observers occasionally noted changes in her demeanor, sudden silences, reflective gazes, or bursts of melancholy that hinted at the emotional battles raging within. These instances revealed the stark dissonance between the Queen's public image and her private reality, a contrast that made her plight all the more poignant. Ultimately, the Queen's tragic decline was a convergence of mind, body, and spirit under unrelenting pressure. The vibrant, commanding figure adored by her subjects coexisted with a woman quietly eroding from within, her health, happiness, and hope gradually diminishing. Her life became a testament to the human cost of isolation, unfulfilled longing, and the relentless demands of duty. In the shadows of her palace, she endured a solitude that no crown, no title, and no ceremonial splendor could alleviate. The brilliance the world admired was inseparable from the suffering hidden behind it, a haunting reminder that even those who seem most powerful are vulnerable to the quiet devastation of the heart. In the Queen's final days, the relentless passage of time carried both the weight of inevitability and the sharp sting of unfulfilled longing. The palace, once a place of grandeur and activity, had become a chamber of quiet anticipation, the corridors echoing with a stillness that mirrored her fading strength. Each sunrise offered a fragile hope that perhaps circumstances would change, that love she had yearned for might finally arrive. Even as reality whispered the cruel truth, her heart would depart this world still unclaimed, still denied the connection she had sought for a lifetime. Physically, her body weakened, each breath a reminder of mortality. The vibrant energy that once carried her through courtly duties had diminished, leaving her fragile frame vulnerable to illness and fatigue. Attendants, carefully observing her condition, noted the subtle decline of her appearance. Pallor in her cheeks, a slight tremor in her hands, and eyes that reflected both weariness and profound disappointment. Every ritual, every meal, and every interaction became both a struggle and a stage, a careful performance maintaining her dignity even as her vitality waned. Emotionally, the queen existed in a state of heightened awareness, acutely sensitive to the rhythms of hope and despair. Small gestures, a letter left unopened, a promised visitor delayed, the faintest rumor of affection, took on enormous significance. Her mind revisited old memories, moments of connection lost or denied, contrasting them against the present silence. The unrelenting tension between longing and resignation shaped her final thoughts, a delicate interplay between the possibility of fulfillment and the certainty of disappointment. Every heartbeat carried the dual weight of hope's flicker and the inescapable grief of solitude. Symbolism and ritual permeated these last days. The queen adhered meticulously to ceremonial practices, maintaining her role even as the world seemed distant and indifferent. Her chambers were arranged with objects that held deep personal meaning, each item a testament to memory, love, and desire. Candles burned steadily, illuminating familiar trinkets and portraits, casting shadows that seemed to dance in reflection of her inner turmoil. Every ritual was both homage to tradition and a subtle act of assertion, a declaration that even in her final moments, she retained some control over her existence, however fragile. Her final act was marked by quiet, unwavering patience. She awaited what she knew might never come, embodying a lifetime of longing in her last hours. The anticipation of hope, juxtaposed against the certainty of its denial, lent a tragic dignity to her passing. When she finally exhaled her last breath, it was not merely the cessation of life, but the culmination of years spent in emotional tension, the final chapter of a story defined by waiting, hope, and heartbreak. The world outside the palace gates continued in its usual rhythm, yet within those walls, the queen's departure resonated with profound emotional weight. Her death became both an end and a symbol, a reminder of the human cost of longing and the fragility of hope when constrained by circumstance. In her silence, in her patience, and in her unwavering dignity, she left a legacy of emotional truth that transcended titles and ceremonial grandeur. The queen's life, culminating in this final act of waiting, spoke not only of tragedy, but of the resilience of the human heart, which, even when denied, endures with quiet, unwavering strength. The queen's life, marked by longing and restraint, ultimately leaves a legacy that transcends the mere events of her time. Publicly, she is remembered as a figure of regal composure, a woman who upheld the dignity of her office amid the grand rituals and ceremonies of court. Portraits and chronicles celebrate her grace, her elegance, and her steadfastness in fulfilling the expectations imposed upon her. Yet beneath this polished image lies a private tragedy, a life defined by unfulfilled desire and the relentless pressures of duty. The stark contrast between her public persona and her private suffering forms the core of her story, a reminder that appearances can conceal profound emotional truths. Her experiences illuminate the human cost of societal constraints. Bound by expectations of lineage, politics, and decorum, she was forced to navigate a world in which personal happiness was subordinate to the machinations of others. Love, when it appeared, was fleeting or forbidden. Connections, however genuine, were fraught with risk and often impossible to realize. In this way, Her life reflects a timeless tension, the struggle between personal longing and societal obligation, a universal theme that continues to resonate today. Lessons emerge not only from her suffering, but from her enduring dignity in the face of it. She met disappointment with patience, heartbreak with quiet fortitude, and societal pressure with unwavering poise. Even as she waited for love that never arrived, she maintained an inner strength that is remarkable in its subtlety. Her story teaches that resilience is often invisible, measured not in grand victories but in the courage to endure, to persist, and to maintain one's humanity amid circumstances beyond control. Ultimately, the Queen's life invites reflection on the fragility of human desire and the ways in which power and expectation shape individual destinies. Her legacy is not merely the story of a monarch, but the universal narrative of longing constrained, of potential constrained by circumstance. While history records the grandeur of her reign, it is the private echoes of her yearning that linger, evoking empathy, sorrow, and admiration. In contemplating her life, audiences are reminded of the profound costs exacted by duty, the silent struggles behind public images, and the enduring power of the human heart to hope, even when hope remains unfulfilled.